Welcome to the Wealthworthy Podcast. I'm Trisha.
Hi, I'm Darian.
Thank you for joining us. This week we'll be talking about what it means to be a humanitarian. Now, a lot of the conversations in the news today are about or encouraging people to give, to support their favorite places and restaurants and just different small businesses that we want to see continue to thrive even as we're in this situation that has slowed up a lot of the economic progress that we had going on. Like, we had this long stretch of businesses doing well and everything just seemingly was growing and we were looking forward to what was next. I think everyone was a little afraid of what the bear market would look like, and now we know that this is our next bear market, right? Like, this is our reality now globally. So we just wanted to have a conversation about what your thoughts are around the actual topic of humanitarianism. So one of the first things that I wanted to address is just how can you become more involved?
That's easy. I think you have to just start with your community, local school, your community church. That's the real easy one when you think about it. You're already going to the church. You start volunteering, giving your time to an organization, as well as at work, giving your time to an organization one day. You better kind of go next.
Yeah, I agree. I think that on top of that, right, like not everyone's gonna go to a church or be compelled to help out a specific school, but you can look at different organizations that will channel funding to the people who you are most concerned about during this time. And then you can join organizations yourself that support different avenues that you're interested in. So a lot of the organizations that we participate in have some arm related to volunteering or giving to charity, and with work there are different pieces where they might match what you're looking to give, or they may be willing to give on your behalf. So just looking at different options in that space gives you what you need to be able to give forth a monetary amount, or if you're looking to get out there and do something, there are a narrowing pool of things that you can do right now, but there are definitely things that people need help with. And I think specifically in the medical field, they've been trying to get people who they can clear and quickly get in front of the situations that they're dealing with, right? So there might be a number of different avenues that you could look at in that regard. But aside from trying to figure out what's a good thing for you to do in this specific scenario, we wanted to talk about like kind of how to make it a part of your day-to-day, how to make it a part of your everyday life, right? Because the more we do on an ongoing basis, the easier it is for us to quickly shift gears when needed to do things that might not come as easily in a situation like this or anything else where your access to whatever the situation is going to be limited, right? So a lot of times when we think about natural disasters and things like that, it's difficult for you to physically be in the area where there has been a natural disaster. But if you are already prepped and in motion and have different organizations set up, or you're participating in different organizations, then it's easy to say, okay, this is how I'll direct my help and my funds so that you can do certain things. Now, when it comes to just trying to incorporate things in your day-to-day, I think one great way to do that is figuring out how to be more involved in your local government. So a lot of times we might only address our local government if there's something specific bothering you, or you need something to be done in your neighborhood and you're looking for action. But building those relationships early on can help give you the kind of clout that you need lead when it comes time to advocate for the areas that are most important to you. So if you have been involved, great, but just finding ways to continue being a part of your community is definitely important. And understanding who your local government officials are is a huge deal when it comes time to making decisions around policies, around like the way that funds will be allocated for different things, right? Like there's a lot of things that you can't just put onus on yourself for. And the best way to have a solid team is to not just look at your friends and family, but also to be involved with the decision makers around policy. Any thoughts about that?
Definitely being involved in the community and just knowing what's going on, knowing who the players are makes it easier.
Another thing, as we talk about policy, do you think that being a humanitarian has anything to do with an actual political party?
No. I feel like if you're wanting to be in politics, being a humanitarian is a good way to start because it gets your name out there and you can kind of build that legacy just from being a giver and then kind of make that transition over to politics. That's what you want to do. I don't think it's the end all be out to that.
Well, that makes it sound like you're using the idea of giving in order to get on people's good graces. But do you think that's what's happening?
I don't always, but I think about it kind of like when people want to join an organization. So say a person wants to join an organization, but they're already out here in the community giving back to the community or doing food drives or whatever they're doing. They're doing this on their own. So it's like they're doing it on their own with some help, but some people just have the resource to be able to go out here and just give back to others without pretty much having a team of people with them, right? So say they want to join an organization and the organization reaches out to them and be like, hey, we want you to come on and be a part of our team. We see what you're doing in the community. It's like with that, the person that's been given, they can continue to give on their own or they can go join the team and do it. So it's like they kind of have their pick versus people who are trying to get something out of an organization or out of someone joining the organization sometimes give them the access to those particular people. So I think with that, it's tricky because like I said, when it comes to giving, I feel like it's a hard issue. So for me personally, whenever I'm giving my time or anything, I want to make sure it's something I'm 100% sold out to. And I think sometimes people it's hard because they have their own hidden agenda or motive in regards to doing whatever it is, giving or whatever they want something out of it.
Yeah, that sounds real grim, but I do think that there is some truth in there with the idea of people using different avenues to benefit them in different ways. And in some cases, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like you can certainly help others and have it be a space where you can meet others and be more involved, right? The more involved you are in anything, the more you're building your network and you can use your network to help propel you further. So I can see how that would occur. But I think when we talk about just specific political parties and how your decision to help anyone is impacted by what party you're affiliated with, that becomes a huge debate. I think people see like the Democratic Party today as being more of the humanitarian sense in terms of the kind of policies and the type of things, the type of welfare that they're looking to address and how they approach situations. Whereas I think that like for the Republican Party, it becomes more of a charitable contribution thought process and you expect people to give large gifts or, you like the expectation that people have around these party affiliations are interesting to me. But I don't think that it should be any specific party affiliation in your thoughts of who can be a humanitarian or who isn't. Because like you said, it's a matter of the heart. So if you are going into something and you're saying, I'm looking for ways to help other people, I'm looking for ways to continue ensuring that those around me are surviving beyond just a basic need, right? Like you want people to have what they need and also be able to thrive in whatever situation they're in. And I mean, thriving doesn't have to mean that your success is skyrocketing just because someone's helping you, but I do think that sometimes it's hard to envision what people's lives might look like when you think about systems that are designed to help others. Like people automatically think like, well, if I help you with this, then your life is now amazing, and that might not be the case. So I think that the reality is, regardless of who we're talking about, you really just have to look at what quality of life do people around you have and how are you participating in that system, right? If you do things that actively goes against anything that would help move our nation forward in terms of being able to see people for who they are and not just by the jobs that they do or by the amount of money that they make. I think that a lot of the ideas about class and race and, all of the different categories that we tend to put people in, those all play a factor into how you view the world and how you treat people. And so I think that that's where those ideas come in. But just when it comes to like giving and our tax code, right? Like we all know that if you donate a certain amount, you can get a certain tax write-off, or you can use it to your advantage in order to minimize your responsibilities to the government. And I mean, in part, I don't disagree with that concept of understanding the tax code and being able to direct your funds to the people who matter to you. Like, I don't see a problem with that. I think that it's a great concept to say, like, instead of me handing over this much money to the government for them to determine how it's spent, I can have control of how some of the money is directed by giving my own charitable contributions. So I think that part is definitely a great way for you to be able to give without having to worry about what your government is doing. So that leads me to a question just on how do you choose who to help?
I think that's a matter of the heart too. You can't help everyone, but I think if it's an organization, just doing your research, kind of doing a history check, how long has it been around, what part has it played in the community? Because I think you want to I know for me personally, when it comes to giving my time or money to anything, I want to make sure it's going in the right place and that they're doing the correct things that they're supposed to do by the book. So with that, you just have to figure out what organization will work best for you and your needs when it comes to giving. And honestly, even when you think about it from that standpoint, God knows your heart. So if you do give money, just like you give money to a church organization, to a homeless person, and they go out here and they use it and may not use it how you would have used it, God knows your heart. He's going to honor that regardless of the fact. But if you can give to an organization that's going to, from the beginning, do what's right, it's always best.
Yeah, I think that definitely if you're looking to give to an organization that supports the cause that you're interested in, then that's a great way to go about it, right? Because then you're not necessarily choosing a specific person, or, you don't have to have the guilt of, like, well, I'm helping you, but I can't help you or you. But at the same time, I do think that it's difficult to determine what causes make the most sense. Because it does mean in many cases that you're helping one area means that there's another area that is not receiving as much. And that is also why you need the collective to band together enough to say, these are causes that we support while you go and support something else. Because then it becomes more of a balanced atmosphere. But I think the challenge is usually around who's holding the funds and whether or not what we have is enough to help everyone else. So that's where I think a lot of friction comes in, just in how much we have versus who we're able to help. Because we can make decisions all day with the funds that we have to say these are the avenues that I'm willing to channel my money. This is how I'm going to support my friend's family and other people that are outside of my immediate friends and family. Yeah, when it comes to the monetary portion, I think that's the hardest part to deal with because if you are making 500,000 a year versus somebody who's making $20,000 a year, the amount that you're willing to give or even able to give is going to be vastly different depending on your life. Like, even if you didn't put in what kind of lifestyles you have, right? Like, just in general, the way that you direct your money will make it more difficult for you to give more than somebody who has the potential to give more if they earn more. But that also leads to the thought of kind of who has the onus to give more, right? Like, does that now mean that because you have money, you have to be the one to give up all your money to charity or to organizations? Like, if I made $1,000,000 tomorrow, do you now expect that I'd be the one giving more?
No, because I mean, honestly, when you think about it, I know people who don't make millions of dollars that give probably just as much as a millionaire. It just depends on the person, honestly. Because if you've been giving since day one, when you didn't have money and then you get money, you're gonna continue to give. But if you're one of these type of people who hadn't been giving and then you get money, you're just gonna continue not to give. So it just depends. I don't feel like either one owes more. Whatever you feel in your heart, kind of like what the pastor tell you in church. Give whatever you feel in your heart. It might be $1, maybe $100, maybe $1,000. You know, but no one should be able to make you feel bad about the amount that you give because you know what you can give in your heart and you know what works for your budget and what you have going on. I think sometimes that can be the tricky part about giving because especially when you think about I'm trying to figure out how to word this, especially when you think about people who have access and money, sometimes I feel like it's easy for them to get swindled more than the average person because now it's like, oh, he said give. I know I can give, but I don't want to give $1,000,000. I don't want to give this amount of money. I just want to give what I want to give. Or maybe you don't even want to give that. Who knows? But I think it's just about knowing your boundaries and being able to say no. I think for everyone.
Yeah, I think that definitely the more you have, the more people envision in their head that translates to you giving that up, right? Like finding ways to give more because you have more. And while that is true in some cases that you do have the onus now to give more. Like much has been given to you, you are able to do the same for others. But I do think that there's pressure where there shouldn't necessarily be. Because I feel like we all know what causes are most important to us. And so if I decide that I want to give to education because that's important to me, then someone comes up and they're trying to get me to be more involved with a case that has to do with health, like while it might be important as well, whether or not that's a situation that I am motivated by now to give is a different question. So the amount that you might be willing to give to one situation over another is completely up to you. And I think that when people hear a price tag, they automatically feel like, oh, you're not giving enough, or oh, you should be doing this. But regardless of what you do, what you give, how you give, there are always going to be criticism going on around those topics. Like, that's not going to die. But it does make me think about something that Oprah was trying to fundraise for. And I saw a lot of criticism saying, like, why is she asking for money when she could just give them out herself? And that's really the same kind of situation that we're talking about here, where it's up to her how she spends her money. Granted, if there are things that people can do and they're choosing not to, it's hard to watch that. Not gonna say it's not hard to watch when you know, like, oh, this person could end the situation by simply using their voice, right? Like, it's hard to ignore that, but the reality is that you get to decide how to use your funds, and like, that decision should really be up to you. So when it comes to choosing the kinds of work that you do and having that be a decision around humanitarianism, like, what are your thoughts? Like, do you think that people should be choosing work responsibly?
I would say no. And the reason why I say that is because when it comes to giving and being a humanitarian, you could be working in one field today and just decide tomorrow you want to be a humanitarian, or you can still have your regular job and still be a humanitarian, because it's really just take all it's about is just giving your time. It's not always about money. Money is important, but sometimes time outweighs the money. Money will get the certain things done, but sometimes it's just about giving your time to an organization and imparting into other people's life and leaving impact.
When it comes to work, I think that obviously there are jobs that people do every day that are making and breaking people's lives, right? Like, when we talk about doctors, nurses, technicians, like anyone who has direct impact on people's lives, it's definitely a humanitarian kind of role. People might not all be in the role because they're looking to be humanitarians, but I think that just the fact that that's your chosen profession, like, you've now devoted your day to day to making sure that people's lives are as best as they can be, right? Like, you're looking for ways to help ensure that their health and well-being are looked after. And I think that's the same about a lot of professions, right? There are definitely specific avenues of every profession where you can look for ways to make it a part of your day to day. And even if your job isn't directly impacted by, like, matters of the heart, as we've been saying, it's still something that you can seek. You can look for ways to make a difference within the organization that you're in. And I think now, with corporate responsibility being a huge topic for many companies, it's something that we all can expect and are expecting to hold leadership accountable for any organization that we're talking about today, right? Like, we expect them to do a certain amount of things and be responsible in the communities that they are representing. And I think that that's a valid thing for us to look out for and to continue holding these organizations accountable for, because they are huge factors in our community. And so whatever we can do as individuals to help make sure that the organizations and the systems that we interact with on a regular basis are doing things for us is important. So any overarching thoughts that you want to share before we close out?
Just do everything that you do from your heart and continue to grow and give it 100%. in all things.
I would say be sure that you are looking at your local governments, figure out who your specific county representatives are if you don't know who they are. Be more involved in the voting process. Right now, we might have to do more absentee ballots, and we have to be responsible about getting as much of that done as we can. I think that over time, these things become more and more important to you, right? Like, it's not something that was always important to me. It's still something that I am continuing to look for ways to be more accountable for my own actions and trying to do things to be sure that I'm also doing those things that we're talking about here. So just being a part of your local government, being a part of organizations that have some kind of charity or volunteerism as a part of their interactions with the community, figure out how you can do something for someone else is definitely the key here. Because I think we get wrapped up in our day-to-day, and sometimes it's good to take a step back and just see how your presence alone might even be instrumental to others, because that's also a big part where people might not see the kind of representation that they are dealing with, right? Like, they might not see their own realities when they look out and look at celebrities or look at other key people who are well represented. But just being mindful of that and using that as a means to help someone else can be a key. All right, so that's all we wanted to talk about here today for humanitarianism. If there's anything that we can do to help you facilitate your own process, let us know. And until then, we'll talk to you again next week on Wealth Worthy. Bye.